Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Please grab a beverage, get comfortable, and we will be with you shortly, just after the hour. So welcome and thank you for joining us. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to get started in just about 1 minute. All right. Good morning, everyone. I think it's about our time to get started. So welcome and thank you for joining us here today. I'm Anna Lucier. I'm the Director of Individual Giving and Stewardship at XPRIZE. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us here today. We hope that you and your families are safe and healthy. Welcome to the 11th installment of XPRIZE's Webinar Insider Series. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. We will begin today with our presentation, which will be followed by a question and answer session. So at any time during our presentation, you can feel free to submit questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. Again, so welcome to today's presentation on transforming the future of work with XPRIZE Rapid Reskilling. This is a $5 million 30-month competition to quickly reskill under-resourced workers for the digital revolution. This XPRIZE will forever change the future of work. XPRIZE imagines a future in which all workers can rapidly attain new and more relevant skills for their current workplace and their next one. Novel solutions developed in XPRIZE Rapid Reskilling will uplift the labor market in the US and close the widening skills gap. Now it is my true pleasure to introduce today's presenters, Dr. Emily Musil Church and Dr. Angela Jackson. First, Dr. Emily Musil Church is the Executive Director of Equity and Education at XPRIZE, where she led the $15 million Global Learning XPRIZE, and she leads XPRIZE's educational outreach and equity programs. Prior to joining XPRIZE, she spent over a decade as a professor, specializing in human rights, African history, global development, and gender equity. Emily has a PhD from UCLA, is a Fulbright scholar, and she served on the OECD's Senior Advisory Group for Blended Finance and the Advisory Board for the Center for Technology and Workforce Solutions. She is the mom of 2 young, adorable children. She is a public speaker and is published in numerous outlets, including Scientific American, International Policy Digest, Amy Poehler's Smart Girls, and Huffington Post. Our second presenter, Dr. Angela Jackson, leads New Profit's Future of Work initiative, which seeks to close the career readiness gap for Americans from low-income backgrounds. Angela's career started in the private sector, leading business development for organizations like Viacom and Nokia. While working internationally, she began to wonder, if multinational companies can deliver their products consistently and with quality at scale, what would it take to deliver social interventions like education and health in a similar manner? She began to tackle this question by founding Global Language Project, a social venture that aimed to transform how we prepare students with skills to succeed in a global economy and workforce. Angela completed a doctoral degree at Harvard University, where her focus was on this question, along with her role of scale and strategic capital deployment and philanthropy in systems change initiatives. Angela's work with New Profit allows her to marry her research interests with practice. She currently leads New Profit's $15 million Future of Work Global Fund to invest in entrepreneurs and companies developing innovative technical solutions to upskill low-income and entry-level workers at scale. Angela recently launched a $6 million Future of Work Grand Challenge powered by XPRIZE and MIT Solve to rapidly reskill 25,000 displaced workers into living wage jobs in the next 24 months. Her work and writing have been featured in CNN, Huffington Post, Chicago Tribune, and the Harvard Business Review. You can read her thoughts on the intersection of race and the future of work on Medium, and you can follow her on Twitter. So welcome, Dr. Jackson. Please accept our sincerest thanks for New Profit's sponsorship of the Rapid Reskilling XPRIZE. We are so thankful and humbled and welcome you here today. And I will turn it over now to you to share a little bit about the history of the labor market in America and how New Profit came to partner with XPRIZE. So thank you.
Thank you, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate you having me. As we mentioned, I'm Dr. Angela Jackson, a partner at New Profit, where I lead our future of work investments and practice. And I have to tell you, we launched the Rapid Reskilling XPRIZE earlier this week, and it's been tremendous to see the response that we've already received. New Profit is a venture philanthropy firm, and what we do is we back breakthrough social entrepreneurs who are thinking about advancing equity and opportunities in America. For the past 4 years, we've worked with our partners at XPRIZE, colleagues, just to think about and to design an initiative to radically advance solutions for a more inclusive future of work. Solutions that will address workforce issues like automation, the growing skills gap, low wages, and educational inequities. And when we were just getting started, we were planning this launch in November of later this year, COVID-19 hit. And as I like to say, we went from the future of work to the present of work. And really what we knew in that moment is that we had designed a solution that could be helpful to the millions of people who are unemployed, who found themselves literally unemployed overnight. People who've been, dealing with this unprecedented financial struggles and really longstanding racial and economic injustices. Just as their jobs disappeared overnight, now millions of Americans are thinking about new jobs and new careers. As we know, many of the jobs that were lost are not coming back. So there's a sense of urgency, and people see their unemployment benefits run out. One thing that we've looked at is local job centers. We've noticed that many times they train for jobs of the past. And what we want to do is retool them for training for jobs of the current. And so we're excited to partner with XPRIZE to bring this rapid reskilling to millions of Americans so we can create an economy that works for everyone. What we do know about the pandemic is that it has disproportionately impacted low-income people and people of color. So we want our innovators to really think about how they can center workers with these identities in their solutions. And New Profit knows that this issue is not going to be solved by one entity, which is why we are excited to be partnering with this collaboration with XPRIZE, and that we've created this grand challenge as a vehicle to, again, center workers. And it's one of the first of its kind partnerships between XPRIZE, MIT Solve, New Profit, to uplift disinvested communities and really overlook talent by empowering them with the skills of the future to re-enter the American workforce in a really sustainable and durable way. Emily will talk about this, but we're really looking at sectors and jobs that are not estimated to be automated in the future. We're looking at sectors that maybe people didn't hear about when they were in high school or college, and also ones that don't take a 4-year degree, because we know that most people don't have time to go back to school and to do that. So I just want to thank you again for inviting me to be here. I want to acknowledge Anusha Ansari, the CEO of XPRIZE, for this partnership and her leadership. Our colleagues, and I would just say friends and thought partners at XPRIZE for this thoughtful design. I also want to thank my new profit funders and supporters, our lead partners, Walmart.org, Strata Education Network, and our other partners like Accenture, Annie Casey Foundation, the Joyce Foundation, Lumina Impact Ventures, the Mortgage Family Foundation, and the Siegel Family Endowment. This work we will not do alone. We know with 40 million plus people unemployed, it's going to take unprecedented collaboration. And this is just the beginning of our partnered list. I look forward to connecting with Emily and talking a bit more about how other partners can still get involved to amplify the impact of this prize. So thank you again, and I'll turn it over to Emily.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's really, we are so excited about this prize and honored to be working with New Profit. The values that you hold and what you stand for is really bolsters our work in the equity domain. This is the world when we envision a more sustainable, equitable future. This is such a key part. So to have sponsors, partners, and as you say, thought leaders, friends, partners, working with us on this challenge is truly an honor. So we are thrilled to share with you a little bit more about rapid reskilling. This is hot off the press. We just launched this week. So we want to share with you more about how we got into the design of this. We're going to talk about the timeline, give you an overview for whatever you want to know, how you can get involved. And I believe we're starting with a short video.
So we're currently in the midst of a fourth industrial revolution. The first happened way back in 1760, where machinery began to do the jobs which were traditionally done by people in collaboration with animals. The means of production were changing. The second began with the advent of electricity. The efficiency of manufacturing increased, as did unemployment, which luckily was short-lived. The third was not so long ago and ushered in the age of computing. Suddenly, machines could perform tasks that would take humans years to perfect. It also introduced us to the internet, and we all know what that brought us. And here we are in the fourth, a time of entirely new possibilities for people and machines. In past industrial revolutions, machines have been replacing humans, but now we have the opportunity for machines and humans to collaborate and improve efficiency in the workplace. Concepts such as robotics, automation, and artificial intelligence seem like exciting, futuristic inventions, but they're with us now and are having very real impacts on our livelihoods. With the sudden appearance of COVID-19, an unprecedented 44 million Americans have filed for unemployment as of June 2020. Of those Americans still in work, 43% are employed in low-wage and part-time jobs, and 16% are employed in the gig economy. People of color are disproportionately affected, with a projected 12 million Black and Latinx workers expected to be displaced in the near future. The combination of COVID-19, racial inequalities, and long-standing automation trends all support the need for accessible reskilling. Lifting workers from jobs that are dangerous, low pay, and threatened by automation to growth opportunities in the heart of the emerging post-COVID economy. Like industrial revolutions before, new jobs and workplaces are going to be created. 46% of all tasks in the US have the potential to be automated, opening up new opportunities for 54 million workers. We can transform our societies, cultures, and economies to ensure that all workers have a dignified pathway into purposeful employment. The future of work isn't robots, and it isn't drones, nor is it AI. The future of work is people.
So that's an overview of why this is so important right now. For our launch date, many of you may know that we just passed the 100th day since COVID-19 was declared a national emergency here in the United States. So it's even more important for us to push this prize forward and make sure that we launched it as soon as possible and really address this major crisis that everybody is talking about. So when we have the vision of a preferred future state, this is what we do here at XPRIZE. We start by saying, let's look 30 years into the future. What do we want it to look like? And what technologies need to come about to pull that future more like 2 to 5 years into the future? So first of all, it's about rapidly getting new skills. So rather than have workers training in a way that costs a lot to them, that can take a year to 4 years to get new skills, which most people, that's not a reality for them to be able to do that, to stop working, to get trained during that amount of time, and to get meaningful, gainful employment. We're talking about livable wage. We're talking about meaningful work that are in jobs that are actually growing and aren't going to be threatened by automation. So for our prize, this is not about one small solution. What we want to do is forever change the landscape of what it means to be able to be trained in work in the United States, and what it means and who has access to training and good jobs. We want to show that it's going to be twice as fast, at least, as what we have currently, and it's going to reach more people in more relevant positions than before. As part of our process, we had months and months, as Angela mentioned in the beginning, of engagement. In fact, we had years before this that we've been working on training. But as we got into finalizing this design, we had over 100 experts that were engaged in our online community. We did many in-depth interviews, and we hosted a Future of Work workshop. So we wanted to make sure we heard from people, a diverse range of voices, experts in the field, to understand the landscape before we figured out where do we really need to focus the energy of these innovators to transform this landscape. If you're interested in more, we have our whole prize design report. So you just saw that slide go by. So we're happy to share all of the details of what went into our prize design. All right. So long-term, what we're trying to look at is how do we make sure this widening skill gap that's happened is closing. We want to change those inequities that exist right now. We want to make sure that people have better quality jobs and that their life experience overall is better. So this is looking at things like how long your hours are on your feet the whole time, the commute, I mean, really your whole holistic experience of work. There's also a lot that we found in the research about social stigma and who was taking which type of jobs, what even people could imagine for their future. But right now, we know we are hit with this unprecedented pace of change, and we know we have, particularly after COVID-19, an rapid increase in unemployment, hundreds of millions of Americans, and particularly for low income and people of color in this country. All right, so for a timeline, I know some people like to see an overview first before we'll go into each one of these. So we are launched, so we're already on the timeline. We are recruiting teams through this fall. So first thing for people who want to know how to get engaged, if you know people who you think could create technologies or partner with us, we are looking for that during the registration period through this fall. And the first phase, teams will be submitting a written proposal. So you see that through the late fall, near the end of 2020. We're going to have a series 3 rounds of testing, and you'll see in a later slide that we are providing milestone purses throughout this, so that unlike some previous models where we've had one prize purse at the end, there's opportunities for teams to get funding to keep them going throughout the process. Our final round of judging is at the end of 2022, when we will be awarding and moving into our scaling impact phase. So all in all, that is a 30-month competition. So we always have our winning team will statements. The winning team here will rapidly train 500 low-skill individuals at no cost to them. So this is important to know that all the workers who are the people who are getting trained, it is free for them to participate in this training. There's going to be at least a 50% reduction in training time. So we are asking for the training to happen in under 60 days. We want these individuals to be placed in as many occupations as possible. We're working closely with workforce development boards to make sure we have those. And once these individuals are trained and they are placed, they're to be retained for at least 90 days. We want to track to make sure that these skills are actually allowing them to be employed long-term. And finally, this is about really demonstrating this exponential adoption. So this is going to be about 5,000 individuals being placed into these relevant jobs for the final round. The three main expected outcomes that we're doing. All right, so first, again, is about how quickly people are going to be trained in these professions. Two is about the cost barrier. We want to make sure that this is accessible to all so people will be able to get trained. And finally, this is really about getting people jobs as soon as possible, regardless of the state of the economy, that there is an opportunity for people to be able to be employed. For the prize purse, all right, I mentioned briefly with the timeline, we have a $5 million prize purse. In the first round, the top 15 teams are going to split $1.5 million. When we get into the second round, it's the top 5 teams who are splitting the next $1.5 million. And then finally, the grand prize winner will get that last $1.5 million with runner-ups, 2 teams, splitting a last $500,000, making up our total $5 million prize purse. You see it's a distributed model with teams to keep them going throughout, but still with our grand prize at the end. All right, the most important line, I think, in all of this about what teams will compete, those of you who know XPRIZE know what I'm going to say next. We welcome anyone to compete. It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what degrees you have. We believe the best ideas can come from anyone. So I encourage you, if you know people who you think might be interested and they say, well, I don't really know if I should do it, or I'm too young, or I don't have the degree. We have so many examples of amazing teams that come from so many different backgrounds. So please, anyone who has the best idea, this is such a critical issue we need solved. So bring those ideas, bring what we always say, something starts as a crazy idea and then it becomes a radical breakthrough. So bring us your crazy ideas, whoever you are. We believe, just thinking sort of to get people started, that there's a lot of opportunities here, of course, with AI and VR technology. There's a lot of startups who can sort of push the work they're doing and really focus their energy on solving this problem. And of course, teams who already do training, reskilling, education, who have experience in these areas. There's also a great opportunity for people to combine those skills. So if you maybe have experience or know someone who does in one of those areas, to find other people and really create an engaging team that combines various skills. And again, here's just one sort of example, because people often ask us, you know, what does this mean? This is not the final answer. We don't ever say what we think solutions should be, but this type of thing to think about the fields. So immersive AR and VR training systems, for example, could be a way to really train people quickly. We can use AI to bridge skills gaps. So just for some examples, the ways we might focus those technologies to solve this challenge. All right, so meaningful work. Because we talk about meaningful work, this really means this is a field that is growing. So we know that there are fields that are either disappearing, have already disappeared, or are on the decline. We have identified specifically a number of fields that are growing. And so teams need to look for occupations that are on the increase and that have a livable wage or above. So you see some examples here on your slide. So this is talking about something that people can invest in, get these skills, and build a future on. New profit. All right. I said a little bit at the beginning, and Angela knows this. We are so excited by the opportunity to work with New Profit. The fact that New Profit really looks at systemic challenges in the United States and is looking particularly to support Black, Indigenous, and Latinx populations and innovators. This is so important to make sure when we say a more sustainable and equitable future is possible, that means everybody has to have a chance at the table. We need all voices here giving their ideas, being supported to be able to create that better future. And particularly when we're building for communities, to know or be part of those communities. So we are, you know, this is so infused in the design and this partnership throughout. So we are thrilled to have New Profit as our sponsor on this. All right, so there's so many ways to get involved. This is usually the first question we get is, how can I help or how can I be involved myself? So number one, teams. We would love teams from everywhere. So please help us by reaching out to your communities, your networks, social. If you have newsletters, people you know, pick up the phone. Please let people know that this is happening. Have them tell their communities about it. There's also opportunities for those of you who have expertise in certain areas here that you can mentor our teams. You can provide in-kind resources, software licenses, that sort of thing, amplifying this work. So we are happy and available to come speak, particularly now we can all plug in digitally and go anywhere in the world in a moment's time. We would love to be able to highlight work of other people in this field and to be able to infuse some of the work that you're doing. If you are in a position to be able to help workforce development boards to place workers, to collect data to help us learn more, if there's equipment that you might have that you could donate, all these things would really be critical to amplifying this work overall. And finally, when we have these amazing solutions at the end, we want to make sure that our winning teams have the opportunity to scale these solutions, create and really energize the market so that we can have these solutions out, affordable, at scale, by the time we conclude this competition. So those are 5 key areas. So if you can help with any of those, please reach out to us. We are very eager to join with you to have your help and support and get as many teams as possible and support them in their journey. So we've mentioned workforce development boards a few times. So we are, well, New Profit is going to be providing grants to 5 workforce development boards who are going to be helping by really energizing and providing regional job market insights. So we are happy to talk more about specifically, but if you know workforce development boards, people involved, please let them know that this opportunity is available to be part of this change in the landscape of American workforce, and we do have grants available for them to work with us in this endeavor. Judges and advisors. So yes, you know, I mentioned from the beginning, throughout this process, we want expert voices throughout this. So we, of course, are welcoming suggestions of people for our judging panel and advisory board. So important throughout. Those of you who know XPRIZE already know that our judging panels are completely independent from us. So this is outside of, we're not deciding who the winners are. It's really important that we have a diverse group of voices and expertise who are looking at our team's solutions and saying who our winners are. All right, so we talked about first thing on the list for how to get involved was recruiting teams. So we are looking to have, we'd like to get at least 100 teams. We are already well on our way. We were really excited by how many have already registered in this first week, but we want more. So please help us with those teams. Also, we want to make sure that at least 40% of our applicants are racially diverse teams who are providing these solutions, or people who also have proximity to low-wage workers. So in particular, if you have networks that fit this description, please encourage them to apply and be part of this competition. And this is, I mentioned this quote earlier before from our founder, Peter Diamandis, the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. So please tell people with their crazy ideas to come join us on this mission. Anna, do we have some Q&A?
Well, thank you so much. I think, thank you, Angela. Thank you, Emily. I Do you guys want to have a few words, talk a little bit about the interaction or partnership, or do you want to move just right into Q&A at this point? We do have some great questions submitted by Michael, but do you have any closing words? This was incredible. Thank you for that wonderful presentation and sharing information about this much needed and really, truly inspirational XPRIZE. Any final thoughts before we move into Q&A?
No, I just want to echo what Emily said about like partnerships. You know, when we launch a prize like this, it's just the beginning. And we are thinking, you know, deeply when I say we, XPRIZE, New Pop, and our partners, like who else in this workforce ecosystem needs to be involved? I was on a call today with a colleague that said, have you thought about the international consulting firms, for example? These are people who have a vested interest in making sure Americans are upskilled to fill open positions. So, you know, that was one that we hadn't really talked about. So thinking about partners like that we can bring to the table. And I'm sure people on the line now tuning in for this probably have some other ideas of folks that we should be talking about or who should know about this prize. We would welcome those introductions and those ideas and also those pushes on our thinking. You know, a lot of people have asked us, why did we choose workforce boards? I think it's really interesting to know that pre-COVID, 1 in 12 Americans actually went to their local workforce board to look for jobs, and to also they need to go to their workforce boards to validate for their unemployment. And that was pre-COVID. And we know post-COVID that these same workforce boards that are in communities across the country are going to be facing an unprecedented need at their doors. You got 40 million people are looking for jobs. So it really behooves all of us to think about how we can work collaboratively with that entity, with the global staffing firms and our employers to make sure that the vast majority of Americans have the ability to do some career transitions, right? To upskill without going back to necessarily get a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree, to do this maybe in 2 months or a month. And I think that's so that's what's so exciting about what we're doing. We're offering people in this moment of time of such change and unrest a chance to upskill rapidly, you know, and there's programs out there that have trained people who were formerly teachers to go into IT. And there's lots of examples that we can talk about, but really, while, you know, there's been a lot of suffering, this also is what I'm calling the Corona bonus. There's an opportunity for us to really have a marked change in the way that the American workforce is upskilled.
Excellent. All right, I think we'll move into our questions. We've got some incredible questions, so I'll just throw it out there and either one of you feel free to jump in. Michael asks, how can we ensure that systemic inequities and biases are not replicated in this work?
So I just can start out. When we designed this, we designed it centered on equity. So one thing that we haven't talked about is New Profit has convened and set up and working with Goodwill Industries, a worker advisory board. So every step of the way, one thing that we've done is really try to center worker voice and also center diversity. So that's starting with getting people who are most impacted by this pandemic, having them weigh in on our design, having us understand their lived experience. So we've been also working with local governments. And then the plan is, as we move forward and have innovators, that we're actually bringing them into community with these workers and with people who are experiencing the problem. And again, we have not only experts, right, in different sectors, we have people who we perceive as experts on their lived experiences, so that if there are biases, we can name them because we know that they exist. And what we try to do is actively solve for them in the design and towards the judging and the validation period.
Excellent, thank you. And then follow-up question also from Michael, and maybe this more to you, Emily, but you know, our winning team will statement, how can we be sure that the equity goals are included in that winning team will statement?
Yeah. Well, so as Angela so beautifully put it, the equity goals is central to all of it. It is the lifeblood of what we're doing, how we designed it, who we're talking to, why we're doing it, who we want to be involved. It is not just about, you know, one standard or a box to check. It is what we are doing. That is why we want, that is the reason for it. I also want to point out something for the last question. Absolutely, you know, we know the model of just creating something for somebody else doesn't work. You've got to make sure we are creating together, and that the people who are impacted by the problem are part of our problem solvers, if not the problem solvers. So part of the reason we've gotten ourselves into such a mess is because we get into that old model of certain people know better and then they know how to fix it for other people. It would be fixed if that were the truth. So another thing, I see we had a question, somebody said international partnership over here. I do want to point out, we have had questions previously, particularly during this launch week, of people from other countries. So while all the testing is happening here in the United States, this is open to innovators from around the world. And absolutely, we want during the scaling phase, the technology that comes out of this to be able to be something transforming the workforce and job opportunities and the way we train workers in the US, but also globally. Because we know that the future workers, the majority of those workers are from the global south. So we know, we were talking to partners in sub-Saharan Africa. We know that young people now, the majority of our workers in the future are going to live in sub-Saharan Africa and India. So this is not only an American prize. We are testing here. We are working here in the US, but the outcomes and the innovations that can come from anywhere and can talk about the job landscape overall.
All right, wonderful. And then she followed up and said, basically, how would a team form internationally? In other words, how could someone in the US partner with someone in another part of the world?
So that is a great question, and that is how we have so many of our teams. The last one, Anna, you mentioned in the beginning, our Global Learning XPRIZE, which had a field test in Tanzania. We had teams from over 40 countries, and almost every team had a minimum of 3 countries represented on their teams. So, you know, luckily nowadays we are living in an era where you can connect. All of us who are working remotely and living our lives remotely now know that you can connect with people all over. As from XPRIZE, we work to make sure we have summits, matchmaking capabilities, so that you can say, I have this particular skill set and I'm looking for a skill set elsewhere. I think of an example of, I believe it is the team that has competed in the most XPRIZes, was a American retired school teacher with a software developer from Hong Kong who had never met. They just met on XPRIZE matchmaking forum and built all this technology together. So absolutely, there's ways, and we hope people are collaborating across all types of boundaries and borders.
Amazing. And I think that just strengthens our work when we bring people, you know, very diverse backgrounds together. So thank you. There's another question about the typical size of successful teams. And I have, is there such a thing as what is typical, or is it all vary considerably?
It varies considerably, for sure. And I would say, you know, there's usually, you know, there's one team lead and then people work collaboratively. So even though an XPRIZE is a competition, it is the most collaborative competition, because you must have other people on your team. Well, you not by the rules. You can be an individual and by yourself in your garage tinkering. Absolutely, that is allowed. But for skill sets, we believe that the more skills and backgrounds and perspectives you can bring in, the better. So there's not really a limit. You know, we've had people who are competing who bring in people at different points. You know, of course, you're operating over a long period of time. You may need some people to come in and consult on certain elements in the beginning, somebody else for a part. There usually is a core team that we work with that is, I would say, on average about 3 to 4 people. But that is, teams can look like anything. Really be creative. There is no formula for success.
Okay, good advice. How do you see low-wage workers being involved in decisions, flow of power, and resources from this work?
Yeah, so I can start with that one. It really is the way that we're thinking about it. And again, we'd welcome feedback. Is one was just first starting with consulting workers who are experiencing low wages to understand if they found value in this idea and upskilling, and also wondering what their challenges were. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, throughout the design process, we actually consulted actual frontline workers who came to our visioneering events and became thought partners with us. I mentioned Goodwill International is a partner, Workers Lab, people who are just really leading on the integration of worker voice. So that's the first part of it. as having this like 60-person worker advisory board. And then the other was the addition of the workforce boards, like taking this technology and actually putting it in front of actual workers in local communities who are experiencing joblessness, who are experiencing barriers to work. Like that's going to show us, like that's where the rubber meets the road. You can have a great idea in theory, but like, did it really work to upskill someone? Did it really help that person get a job that they're sustained on? And so I think that's why New Profit was so excited about partnering with XPRIZE, because for us as a philanthropy, it's a leverage philanthropy play. We're able to actually, instead of just funding an idea, we're actually to see what the outcomes are. What does it really mean, and how does it materially change the life of someone who's like experiencing low wages? And then with the exponential phase, we're saying how long did that person actually stay in their job? And I think the other exciting thing that we're doing on the back end, this is New Profit, is that we're partnering with 5 workforce boards, but we're actually taking those learnings and we're going to make them available to workforce boards nationwide. We're also looking at making policy recommendations. Many people on this webinar probably know that there are millions and billions of dollars that go into workforce development, and it goes into training people for outmoded careers and jobs. What we're doing with XPRIZE and Rapid Reskilling is thinking about what are the jobs of the future, what are the jobs in the next 3 to 5 years that won't be automated, that pay people a living wage. And from what we heard directly from workers is like, for them, that's a game changer. That's something they weren't taught in high school. They hadn't even heard in college. Like we're actually bringing them on the front line of what the future of work looks like.
Excellent, thank you. And that leads beautifully, Angela, into our next question from Jeff. Do you have a sense of what skills will be needed for the workforce of the future?
Emily, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So, you know, for the workforce of the future, there's all sorts of skills. We had some particular, I'm not sure if this question is asking for the specific skill set or the occupations themselves. So we have a series that we listed earlier of potential types of occupations that are growing in the US. So you can look at things, you know, it had on there things like chefs, food service, makeup artists. I see there's a comment here about hair braiders. So, you know, industries that we see that there are jobs going up. So we're happy to provide some of those examples. And then on a more sort of abstract level, there's also, of course, making sure we see that there is creativity that goes into that. And I love that already some of these examples like chef and hair braiding, you know, these are creative endeavors. They are collaborative. They are digital. So you'll notice a lot of these examples that we gave talked about using the new technologies. So people are then getting familiar and comfortable with those technologies. Obviously, so many of us just living our daily lives are infused with new technologies and rapidly learning. I mean, think about what you knew about phones, you know, and personal computing 15 years ago versus right now, and what you probably have in your pocket or right next to you. So really getting people comfortable with the digital age. But we have a list of those specific occupations. So a lot of research went into that on things that are on the decline and things that are on the increase. So great question.
Yeah, and I was going to just add on to that. One thing that we're doing is we're also referring to MC. We're using AI data that's out there through MC and Burning Glass to really understand like what's going on real time in the marketplace to help us project what skills and what trainings that we want to sign on to. But I think also when we look at the macro, it's about learning how to learn. And a lot of the people that we're trying to help, they did not have great educational experiences the first time, right? And so what we know that's true about the future of work in the future, it's all going to be about learning how to learn over and over again. And so what we're hoping to do with this, by accessing this quick technology and introducing this to people, again, that this may be news to, is that we're starting them on this path of being like this forever learner and giving them just some navigation on where to go. And the internet is a blessing and a curse. I tell people there's so much information. There's so many coding boot camps, etc. And I hear horror stories daily basis that people have trained, spent money for jobs that, again, that are outmoded by the time that they end the training. So again, we're thinking with this mass unemployment that with Rapid Reskilling XPRIZE, that will also be a conduit for good information for people. One is like we're empowering the solvers and the solution providers, but we're also letting job seekers know like what we think will be the jobs in the future and where they should place their own bets with their time.
Okay,
Absolutely.
wonderful.
And Angela, thank you also for talking about this in terms of lifelong learning. You know, from the XPRIZE perspective, for us, when we look at the trajectory of work that we're doing around learning, this is so key to what we see overall big picture. So, you know, we talked before about global learning, which was for out of school children, that we're learning really with adaptive, individualized, game-infused learning where it's fun. We also had our adult literacy XPRIZE, which is saying, how can you learn in small chunks of time and learn, you know, in between after the kids are in bed or while you're on the bus on the way somewhere. And what we're also doing with our XPRIZE Connect, with our next gen innovators, where we're looking at creating games. I mean, that idea of learning, this is another thing that's kind of done. If you think you go to school and you're done learning at 18 or 22 or 25 or whenever you finish your schooling, you know, people say this in graduation speeches, like, oh, we should be lifelong learners. But really, there's an opportunity right now for people to have deep learning, radical transformations in what you can do. We are living longer and there's opportunity to do more. So we really see this XPRIZE Rapid Reskilling as a way to say, this is also part of your lifelong learning. This is something that should hopefully open up doors of curiosity and opportunity and hope for the future and feeling excited about it, as opposed to saying, all this stuff has happened and it's happening to me. This is a chance to be able to go and form that world and be part of it and recreate as an adult who and where you want to be and what opportunities you have for yourself and your family.
Beautifully
Emily,
said, Emily. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Emily, I love that. Like, you know, when I talk about the future of work, it's like, it's not preordained. You know, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's the way that we decide to design it, right? And it starts with challenges like this one. We're investing in the most marginalized workers. We're investing to ensure that these workers have opportunities and access. And so that like will determine if we have an equitable recovery. It will determine what type of opportunities exist.
Okay, well, we are out of time, but I'm going to take one final question and then wrap it up. I had a question about what age group are we targeting, if at all?
So it is open. Oh yeah, sorry, Angela.
No, go ahead. No, go, Emily. You're saying it's open, and I completely agree.
All right.
So there's also two ways to answer that. Do you mean by the innovators creating it, or do you mean by the people who are getting the technology and being trained? So, but it is open on both sides. Particularly, so first, just to talk about the teams and the creators, we have had innovation coming from all sorts of ages. So this goes back to, you know, I was saying in the beginning about, please don't think, oh, somebody else should solve this, not possibly me. You know, we have had amazing innovations coming from junior high and high school students, from people of professions you wouldn't think would be the ones creating this next technology, from partnerships for people. So for your creators, really, whoever you are, there's opportunity. For the workers, these are adult workers, just to be clear, that we are talking about adult workers, but it is, you know, that can be people who are starting out their career and trying to figure out what they should be trained in to go out, or people who are saying, I want to make sure for this next chapter of my career, or that there is a next chapter of my career, who are mid or later in their career, that is for those workers as well.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for this incredible presentation today. And thank you all for tuning in and for your incredible questions. I'm going to share some information. I know we couldn't get to everyone, so if you do have questions, you're going to reach out to the team. We'll be happy to continue this dialogue. There's a lot of work to be done, and I hope that this conversation today has inspired you to become more involved in this XPRIZE and in our work, and you can all help shape our collective future. So there are many ways, as Emily mentioned earlier, to become involved. Please help amplify our work, support a team, spread the word about this competition. We're actively seeking partners, and then you can email the team at rapidreskilling@xprize.org. And you can also visit our website, which provides a whole host of information on how to become involved and how you could enter a team. And that is, again, at rapidreskilling.xprize.org. And of course, please feel free to reach out to me directly for more information about this prize or any of our other work. I'd love to hear from you. So again, thank you for joining us today. Angela, Emily, incredible presentation, inspirational work. Angela, thank you to you and everyone again at New Profit, and Emily for leading our equity work. It's amazing. Ladies, just really encouraged and hopeful about our future. So thanks everyone for joining us. Please keep in touch and check your email for future information about our future webinar presentations. Everyone have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.